Hi, welcome to DC Vigilante. So, I was on YouTube the other day and I came across some videos about SHAZAM's reaction to the movie hall, and there was one guy in particular, and he was given a reason why SHAZAM wasn't being successful, and I thought, well, man, so I tuned into him, and his reason why the film only got so much of an opening was because it wasn't connected to the DCU. And everybody's got their own truths to things, right? And this is why I always end my video to say that's my truth. Because you've got your truths, and that's what you believe in, and it's good, right? You probably don't have the same opinion as me, and that's fine, disagree, tune into somebody else. I'm not saying it's fact, and neither are all these YouTubers that claiming that they have some sort of superior knowledge. And then I turned into, so I then researched to see what other YouTubers were saying about SHAZAM. And I tuned into John Campion, and he's talking to this guy who normally uses in his wee show. And this was a guy, and I'll put a link to these videos I mentioned at the end of the video. And this guy didn't like it, even though most of his films and how he praises Kevin Feige most of the time and think he's the saviour. I'm thinking, I'm not going to take you seriously, because SHAZAM is close to what Marvel's been doing than any other movie that's out there. And for you not to like it, and then for you probably, the humour was even better. I just can't stand this, and it just sort of proves the biased and unfair treatment that I've always been sort of using on my page. And before I go any further, I just recently got this Aquaman special extra documentary stuff that you can't buy. You can't get it on Netflix, and the signal will stop, and they don't really do extras, so it's always still good to keep your physical copies. Okay, one thing I'm constantly campaigning about. So then I came across this video called Fan Man, and again I'll put it to the end of the video, but we're going to watch a wee bit of it just now. SHAZAM Change Weekend and the Future of DC, right? So let's hope this works. Here we go.
Hey kids, Fan Man coming at you on Monday the 8th of April 2019. Here we are the day after the premiere weekend of SHAZAM, who I refer to as Captain Marvel, because that's who the character is, although this version in these films probably we could call whatever. You'd call it grilled cheese sandwich. It'd be about as accurately Captain Marvel as a grilled cheese sandwich would be. SHAZAM director talks sequel plans, DC-EU connection. Spoilers! So there are spoilers here. If you are not yet familiar with the film's plot, you haven't seen the film yet, then be aware there will be some spoilers here. And if that bothers you, then you have been warned. This, by the way, is David F. Sandberg, and I want to just start off before I get into this, because I've noticed in comments on my last video that I did about SHAZAM and DC on film and all this kind of this particular topic, a lot of people have, in fact, one person in particular criticized me and said, if you were a fan of quality filmmaking, you'd realize that Man of Steel, blah blah blah, is a good film. Da da da. I am a fan of quality filmmaking. I'm a fan of film, not just comic books, and I've been watching films as long as I've been alive, which is as long as I've been reading comics, more or less. And I have a number of favorite directors, and I know quite a bit about film. I've taken a screenwriting class. I've watched probably countless films. I've read scripts. So I think I know enough to say I know quality filmmaking, and I know when I don't see quality filmmaking. None of the DC Extended Universe films that I've seen, right? I can only speak about the ones I've seen as far as filmmaking. I'm not talking about trailers or content as far as the themes and the universe. I can't speak about, say, Wonder Woman. Haven't seen it. Aquaman. Haven't seen it. Now, I like James Wan a great deal. In fact, I love his Conjuring films, Insidious, etc. I love David F. Sandberg. I don't know him personally, I'm saying I love his work. This guy right here, David F. Sandberg, I am a huge fan. As a big horror buff, I love any kind of horror, and for years I did a 31 Days of Halloween blog, and in that blog, which was also featured on here in video form, you can find the last 2 years, I believe, or 3 years here on this channel, I watched the shorts of David F. Sandberg, and I'm really very impressed with his style of filmmaking, with his writing, his directing. And I think I'm probably a fan most of Lights Out, the short that he did, that led, of course, to the feature film, which he also directed, Lights Out, same name. So I know films, and I know David F. Sandberg. I have nothing against him. I love that DC, or at least Warner Brothers, is using this particular idea of let's go for quality filmmakers who have a proven track record of making good films to make these films. However, that doesn't change that they are based on a fundamentally flawed concept, and we're going to talk about that and give it a name here in a minute. Although it doesn't apply to every film, it certainly does apply to, say, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and now Shazam. So let's just talk about some of the news here regarding the film over the weekend. It's in theaters, and it made, I don't think this article is going to mention, but it made $156.3 million, or maybe 158. Oh, look, it's right up here. 158.6 million globally. Okay, so that's very good, right? Sandberg explained to Deadline the presence of classic Shazam villain Mr. Mind was a fun way to open doors for future stories, not necessarily directly indicative of what would come in a possible sequel. So Sandberg explains who Mr. Mind is. He says it's not a setup for Shazam Part 2 or Part 3. It's just for fans, which is nice. Again, that's a great thing. One thing is certain, Shazam is set squarely, this is what I wanted to talk about, squarely in the DC Extended Universe, or as I call it, because it's what it is, not because it's just my opinion, the Snyderverse. It is not the DC Universe anything. With references to Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. So, Not So Superman, Batfleck, Wonderless Woman, and Aquabro. And even light references to the Disgust Us League. Alright? I call them these things, not just to be clever or attempt to be clever, but because that's how I see them. They aren't really those characters. Okay? And then also there is a semi-cameo from the Man of Steel himself. I find it interesting that they use the term Man of Steel here, because he's not Superman. And it seems there are some people who are fine with that distinction. I, on the other hand, am not. It should be Superman. It, of course, isn't. Just how it fits into a single unified film...
How much could I couldn't watch much of that rubbish. I just couldn't. It really peeved me off. The fact that he's coming across is just because he went to a screenwriter's place, or to learn, or maybe he wrote a screenplay, or maybe he's watched movies like every one of us has watched movies, right? Nothing he said in that video, right, says to me that he knows better about good filmmaking than you or I, okay? And the fact that, I can't remember if he mentions Marvel or whatnot, but the fact that that he's read comics, which seems a bit false, because then he would know what Man of Steel was, and there's a big hiatus because he's not called Superman, even though Man of Steel is another name for Superman. He can't grasp the concept that he somehow he's not allowing that in his concept that he should be. I don't know. And then of course he's calling it the Snyderverse in filmmaking, right? So he's talking about The Conjuring and these other film directors like James Wan and whatnot. Now, don't get me wrong, a couple of the films were okay, right? I've seen The Conjuring. They're okay. Nothing to me stands out, and I've seen James Wan movies, and again, nothing much is said out. It made okay, but when you're talking about a film maker or a director, and that he somehow knows what it is to make a good film. Seriously, his opinion, what he should be saying would be his own opinion. Because Zack Snyder, if you've seen any of his movies, you know how a great visionary he is. You know, and when you see something like The Ultimate Cut, you know he takes comics, and he knows about comics. He's read them, right? He's just like anybody that's going to approach comic books, even if you haven't read them before. You do a wee bit of research. You look into the character. If you're going to make a Superman movie, you do a bit of research. You know, you find out the basics of a character, right? And this guy, because he's saying he's a fan man, seems to come across as somebody who knows better than you and I. Now, again, I'll leave this link to the top. Don't comment just now. Watch the video, and then you tell me what you thought of him. For me, the reason why I made this video is because what I wanted to really say is, when I watched Aquaman, as you can see, I bought it on DVD. I'll be buying SHAZAM, right? And there'll be umpteen videos about people saying, you know, or the DCU has turned the corner, it's heading into the right direction. Or you'll get somebody saying, keep Snyder away from the DC universe. This is why, you know, he wasn't good for it and stuff like that. Even though Snyder gave you the characters of Wonder Woman and Aquaman, the actors and actresses that played it, gave you a sort of feel for the character that made them more real than what you would see in the comics. And when it came to filmography, I mean, hello, the Batman scene. All I'm saying is, right, now with this Aquaman and SHAZAM thing, right, we don't want, and I've said this 100 times before, we don't want that those two last films as the basis for the future of all DC movies. Right? We don't want the basis where we'll just say, right, Zack Snyder, we can't allow you back in, even though he's produced and helped finance and everything else, and done it for Aquaman and Wonder Woman. And I can't remember if he was even credited in anything on SHAZAM. I'll need to go back and check that. I doubt it though. But for a man that brought his Man of Steel, a new way of looking at Superman, a different take on him, rather than the same Superman from old, right? Because most of these characters, you look at the X-Men for instance, has been redone, revisualised, rethought about. Hulk was done a couple of times as well, right? You have to somehow break the mold. I just found out as well that Collider even had two guys on it that were actually defending BVS, that were actually demanding the Snyder Cut, and this is from Collider. People are changing their tones, right? People are changing it. But of course, the universe, the DC universe, or if that exists anymore, or anything, right? But if you're going to make a DC superhero movie, you need different flavours, right? To make each film fresh. You need this is when I watched SHAZAM and Aquaman, yes, they were enjoyable films, but it missed that ingredient for me. It missed that connection that I got from Man of Steel and BVS. That one where that's gritty, that's mature and everything. I mean, I get SHAZAM being a kid and everything else, right? And you had the villain, and it was aimed for a family audience and stuff. But I still want that sort of adult feel to it. Where you see Superman, he's in despair and he's crying and he's trying to figure out where he fits in the world. And Batman, feeling guilt, feeling anguish. And we heard stories about the Justice League, about Flash running and using the speed force that Again, I'll leave video links and you can find out more about this, right? But the universe shouldn't deny somebody like Zack Snyder to come in and make a movie, right? And he's tackled Superman. What would he be like if he tackled Batman? Now, we already got a director for Batman, right? But you saw what he did in a 5-minute fight sequence in BVS. You saw in BVS the dark, Bruce Wayne in that. Can you imagine what he could do with that? You've seen him doing the Watchmen. So I said, don't turn any... But SHAZAM and Aquaman, I'm just glad the Joker's coming out. Because the Joker has a different feel to these things. And hopefully when Black Adam comes out, he can be not closely as dark as the Joker. But I would want a film about Black Adam, because it's a solo movie, to be that much mature and darker. And then when we have the SHAZAM and Black Adam, you would want that sort of serious tone that I didn't get. Now, there should be no reason on this planet, stupid, but there should be no reason that every superhero movie, right, should have five stars from critics because it's following a formula that it should be kid friendly and whatnot. I mean, you look at SHAZAM, and the best moments in SHAZAM when the Seven Deadly Sins started speaking, that gave it that bit of bite. It gave it that wee bit of meat on its bones. It gave that shocking effect, and then you spend the other hour or so just looking at some daft hero, making jokes and connecting the universe. All I'm saying is, never ever count a director out. Right? Every director on the face of the planet has made movies that probably didn't do too well or didn't receive too well. But just ask yourself this. BVS had an ultimate cut. People are talking about the Snyder cut. More and more people are wanting the Snyder cut. The more people hear about that story, the more they want it. So for this guy who believes that he knows more about filmmaking than Zack Snyder, right, that is probably unaware of the effort that he made trying to put BVS together before being hammered by the studios, but being hammered by the studios when he was trying to make Justice League, right, having to walk away from his movie and then letting, and supporting the fans, because we're all consumers. We want what we want. And after hearing what Zack Snyder's plan was for his overall picture, that is filmmaking. When you sit and you plan and you want your story told, but him, this fan man, he's some who's went to college and learned how to screenwrite. Does he not understand what the studio does to directors and how they move directors in and demand that they change their piece of art? So I said, no. We need more directors out there with passion and a vision, and not a director that is going to follow a formula, like Marvel, like SHAZAM and Aquaman. We need different tastes for and I'm not just talking about different tastes for different characters. This SHAZAM movie was at one level because it's new, it's fresh, he's still young. But that kid grows up, his attitude to things changes, and we all know what teenagers are like. So we need something. We need a host of directors. So for him to say Snyderverse and whatnot, and it's not Superman, no, that's not him being creative. That's him just wanting his own way, what he believes to be the right way. And for him not to know what filmmaking is, and what for him to pretend to say that I know what makes a good movie, you've got to laugh, especially when you sit down and you watch movies and they all follow the same formula, and there's hardly any director out there. I mean, can we remember that scene in Man of Steel when Superman's cape's flowing and the tanks are down on the ground and he's hovering above them? Could you see that imagery in any other director? No. No. So yes, Zack Snyder, come back to DCU and let's all work together. Sandberg, the lot of them, everybody, and just make great DC movies. And let's not listen to fan-made pretenders. That's DC Vigilante. Check these connections out. That's my truth. Thank you.